What if every minute spent on paperwork was a minute taken away from helping a young person thrive? On today's episode, we talk to Alysia Lee, CEO and president of the Baltimore Children Youth Fund, who faced that exact challenge, balancing transparency, accountability, and equity while getting millions of dollars in grants to grassroots organizations. By adopting Jotform Enterprise, Alysia and her team automated approvals, simplified reporting, and gave grantees more time to focus on youth instead of bureaucracy. Welcome to Momentum, a podcast by Jotform where we talk about the technology, productivity tips, insights, and best practices that help us move forward in business and in life. Let's get started.
3, 2, 1, liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Maintaining momentum. Hi, Alysia. It's so nice to have you on the show. I'm so excited to talk to you. I've heard all about your amazing cause, and I read your case study, and I'm so excited to hear it straight from the source.
Awesome. Well, I'm so glad to be here to represent Baltimore and to talk about tools that we use to make our work pop here every day.
Right on. I guess, why don't we start from the beginning and just kind of have you introduce yourself and then also kind of talk about what Baltimore Children's Youth Fund is all about.
Yeah, well, I am the president and CEO of the Baltimore Children Youth Fund, which is a really unique voter-approved youth fund. The city of Baltimore voted, 80% of the city voted to create a fund using tax dollars to support youth development in our city. So that was a really crown jewel moment for our city where we all came together, or 80% of us came together and said, young people matter, and we're going to put our money where our mouth is and make sure that young people know that the city of Baltimore is here to make sure that they have access to the opportunities and resources and spaces that can really be so transformative for a young person. I know I always think about when I was a kid, and when I was 13, I was called a youth leader by a neighborhood person and recommended to join a program called Youth as Resources, which is a nonprofit that still exists today in Baltimore of young people who disperse grant funds. I know. And so to be doing that 40 years later, to be working to provide grant funds to programs throughout the city. When I started doing that when I was 13, we drafted the request for proposals, and we had sessions with people that wanted to learn about how to write the application. And then we selected which programs got funded. And so to be doing that work years later, it reminds me constantly of the power of spaces that amplify what young people are capable of, how you never know how that could change the trajectory of a young person's life. So that's the work that we do every day, is to disperse those funds, support those organizations. And we also provide a dual approach to grant making, meaning we give out about between $9 and $14 million a year in grant funds. But then we also dedicate a large proportion of our budget, about 20% of the total budget, is for professional learning. So, right, knowledge and cash resource together allow organizations to have the resources they need for today, but to also plan for a brighter future, a more sustainable future for them and the programs that they're leading for tomorrow. So I'm really proud of to be able to be a part of that work and the legacy that created the Baltimore Children Youth Fund.
Yeah, that's amazing. I can't believe that you've been in it since you were a kid. Did you grow up in Baltimore?
I did. I grew up right here in Baltimore. I'm a Baltimore girl. And there's a lot of youth programs that I've participated in as a kid that gave me an inkling of what's possible. Right. Not all of them I stuck with. It's like I'm an artist by trade. And so, as a young person, I fell into I was in a choir, and we would travel all throughout the city. I always tell people I've been inside of every church in Baltimore City because we would travel and sing all across the city. And that was really powerful and meaningful to me because, again, it's like those opportunities where young people not are being directed to do, but are making decisions Those are those opportunities. And we got to choose like what music we were going to learn and what songs, and sometimes we would get to conduct. And, so like when you give young people opportunities to lead the work that they're a part of, it really gives them a glimpse into, I could do this. I could be this. Or I don't want to be. Because I also was like on a softball team for 2 weeks and I was like, this is not me. Yeah. So, it works. But kids need opportunities to explore, right? And to learn about who they are and who they aren't. Yeah. And so the programs that we work with every day are the ones that are out on the ground, providing basically like irresistible youth programming for young people that really meets them where they are and takes them where they want to go.
Yeah, I think that's so important to like give kids a chance to learn what they don't like,
Yes, absolutely. You have to try. You have to be able to like try something earnestly. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. That's right. Failing forward is one of the ways to learn and grow.
Yeah, that's how I was with the Boy Scouts. I was like, yeah.
See, you're like, get me out of the woods.
Let me just ask, what exactly is the core mission of Baltimore Children and Youth Fund, and how does that mission show up in the lives of the people of Baltimore?
Absolutely. Well, we're here specifically to support and nurture what I call the youth development ecosystem of our city. So young people, we often hear the African proverb, it takes a village to raise a child. And that's true, but it takes a network of concentrated and diverse folks to be able to help a child traverse from 0 to 24 safely. And also, most importantly, that they don't just survive it, but they're able to thrive in that time and really meet their greatest potential. So schools are a part of that network. Families are a part of that network. The young people themselves, and then people who are working in out of school time, providing after school clubs, weekend activities, right? Parks and rec. So recreation centers are a part of that. So all of the people that kind of engage with young people in a young person's day, the bus drivers that drive the school buses, the city buses that get kids from point A to point B. We're all here to be of service to young people. And so what we do is we are the convener of those folks. We are the folks that are saying our prime customer are young people. And we are here to support the people that support them. So we don't have any youth programming ourselves. We're here to support those organizations that supply to young people. And we support them, yes, with grant dollars, but also we support them by we are building this incredibly robust professional learning community, a place where people can feel connected and ask questions. A lot of the programs that we work with are small or grassroots organizations, so people with budgets of $750,000 and below. And so a lot of them are like, a lot of the programs are like, I'm the only employee. I work by myself, or maybe I have 2 people that work here. These are not those big anchor institutions. People working in isolation, they need colleagues, they need connection, they need places to go and ask questions. And so we think about learning from that place of, it's not just about providing a workshop. It's about building a learning community of people who are saying, we're committed to improving our practice, whether it's from nonprofit infrastructure to how to recruit kids, to how to health and CPR certifications, whatever those pieces are. We're here to learn and grow so that young people have safe, viable, long-lasting spaces to come to and connect with friends and have opportunities that are just out of this world. Like that's the deal. Kids want, and young people want, opportunities to do the things that are not just the everyday thing. They want to have access to the best opportunity. And so that's what we're trying to create, is a space for global wide excellence. So you don't just have, a baseball space to practice. We're so proud. One of our incredible partners is Baltimore Urban Baseball Association. They have top of the line, state-of-the-art equipment where the kids are going. People from all over the city reserve time at their facility to practice with their batting cages because they have the best ones that are available. Yeah, that's what we want. We want kids to have the best things, the best equipment, the best facilitators, the best programs, because they deserve access to the best so that they can reach their top potential. And so that's what we're all about, is making sure that Baltimore City kids have what they deserve, which is really infinite. Infinite. And we're so lucky to partner with people every day who are working on the ground to do the unimaginable with young people. And it's really an honor to be able to support them in any way.
Yeah, that's incredible. I didn't even think about the fact that like you guys don't even have your own youth programs. You're just working with all of these amazing people who are.
That's right. Our job is to support the organizations and the leaders. And sometimes those are young people, because some of our programs are youth led. Youth as Resources, I mentioned earlier, is a program. Their staff are young people. When I attended one of their staff meetings, and there was one adult there. So that's not unusual too. But we're here to support those folks, the people who are leading the work, so that they can really focus their energies and feel confident when they step in front of young people that they have a program that's going to last, and also that they can bring and build the program in their dreams and imagination. So a lot of us as entrepreneurs have an idea, and then we got to find the capital to make the idea happen, and the resource, the human capital, the financial capital. And so this idea of like, if we resourced everybody to have what they need, then we already see like sometimes people have like 15% of the resources they need and they're doing amazing things. It's like, what if they had 50%? Mm-hmm. They transformed so many kids' lives just, and they had like they really needed $500,000. They were able to inch it by with $125K. What if they had $450,000? What would be the impact? How would the quality of that program change? How many young people would be impacted? And so I'm always thinking about that, about the missed opportunity when we don't connect these incredible dreamers and doers, who we think of as our grant partners, with resource. Like we're missing out on impact because we don't resource them all the way. So I'm always here to advocate for them. Yeah,
you're missing out on the next you. Yeah, the next 13-year-old in that one of those programs.
That's right.
I saw that you were awarded over $30 million since 2021, or you have awarded.
That's right. Yeah, the number even went up by probably since last. So as of now, it's like 40.1 million. We just finished a grant cycle. We just announced some new grantees. Since 2020, that's how much we've awarded into the city.
That's incredible. I'm curious, out of like all of that money that you've given out to the community, is there one story that stuck with you of the impact that you've made?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm thinking about the Marching Elite. They're a marching band program here in Baltimore. They bring kids together from all across the city. And the funding that we're able to provide for them, supplies, of course, staffing, make sure that staff can be paid, access to instruments and materials. And we've seen the quality of the programming shift and change, and that this year they were able for the first time to travel and win a national honor. Right, to win a national award for the excellence of their band. And so we have other programs too. I'm thinking about Ballet After Dark, which is a Baltimore favorite program because they represented Baltimore. They were on America's Got Talent a couple years ago and did really well. But secret, as wide open and as wonderful as that program was, the other secretive part was no one had ever funded them before. So the founder was continuing to do this work. She does incredible work around movement and ballet and dance for victims of trauma. And so that they can have an opportunity to really engage back with their bodies in a positive way. Everyone loves the mission. Everyone's moved by the performances, but nobody was throwing out the dollars to sustain the work. Her first grant came from the Baltimore Children Youth Fund. And so then she was able for the first time to collect a paycheck for the work that she's been doing for quite some time that we all love and we all respect a great deal. So sometimes a lot of programs, especially small programs, there's just a thought of like, somebody will take care of them, somebody will do it. But the resources simply sometimes are not accessible to small organizations. You really do have to be larger in order to kind of take advantage of some of the, especially national and regional funding that's available. So I'm really proud of the fact that there's like some basically local heroes of ours that are able then to connect to these dollar resources and bring more resource even to themselves as a leader. Because when we don't make sure that these folks have even what they need, right? Before we even go down to so they can provide for the young people, they can't stay in these careers. These are not sustainable careers and pathways. And so you have a person like Tide Courtney, who runs Ballet After Dark, who's making transformation visible, even on a national stage, on television. People were moved. We could see the work is so valuable. We know that there are young people that need to access that program and that point of view towards wellness and healing. And if we don't make sure that she has the basic things she needs, how can she then make sure that the program is there for the young people that need it? So we really do think about the work that we do as benefiting young people, and all the ways that like making sure that the programs that are there for young people. But we also have to think about the leaders and the people who make the work happen every day, and how, I would say intentionally, we have overlooked a lot of small organizations and thought, oh, in that trickle down effect, they'll get what they need. And we haven't like zeroed in on their on investing in them. But we have all reaped the benefits of the impact that they make, because people who work on the ground have the most potent solutions, the most creative ideas around how to solve problems, and also the most comprehensive understanding of the problems themselves. And yet we haven't like turned our focus towards them to say, then let's over-resource you. Let's make sure you have what you need because you've got the potency. And so BCYF and the community created this vision, right? For like, we have people for decades that have been working in grassroots approaches that just never got funded. You know, did fish fry dinners, came out of their own pockets for other people's children to have resources that they needed. Yeah. And while I love that was happening, it shows a great value of love. It is also time to reverse that and to create a more sustainable pathway to support young people. And my hope is that just like if you're in Silicon Valley, you know that if you go there and you have an app idea, there's a network to support innovation, right? I'm hoping that Baltimore City becomes that place around youth development, that when a person steps up and says, I have an innovative idea to help young people that I know will work, that they will find a resource hub of financial resources, capital, relationships, knowledge, right? It's like all present and ready for them to step in and assume those roles. And it won't feel so like isolating and like you're on your own, but you can actually like, we can all learn from each other. Oh, don't try that. I made that mistake. This is the place where you go to pick up to get the discount on the cleats for the such and such. Don't order from there. Like we can all learn from each other, so we're not all starting from zero. And that kind of networking is what we're looking to build. And in philanthropy, often organizations feel like they're competing against each other, right? Burger King, McDonald's style. And I'm always reminding them that, remember, like where you see a Burger King and McDonald's is never far away. They actually work together. Mm-hmm. Right? Because it's like, where are the places where people are going to be hungry? Let's put all of our fast food places there, right? You don't see McDonald's as the only one. Right, exactly. We actually can become stronger by just allowing our strengths to sit close in proximity together. That's actually how we're strongest. And so I see a lot of change happening in the ecosystem. People say to me all the time, I have colleagues now, I have friends I can call when I have a question. People comment also, and we've had some research done about the efficacy of the learning programs that we have, and we've got that white paper in place that says the programs are efficient and they help people to learn and grow. But I'm always just really happy to see like a person who's been working in isolation kind of at their dining room table for 5 years to build a program say, hey, I had a question the other day about a young person, and I had a colleague who I know works with, also works with middle school girls. And I was able to call her and say, like, what do I do about this? Oh my goodness, this middle school girl. And she can say, I have one just like it. Let me tell you what I'm doing, right? And so to be able to have connection and resource in addition to the grant dollars, I think has been transformative for grantees. And I know, like, when I used to run a nonprofit program as well, I used to run a girl choir, and I would have loved to have that, to know the other leaders when I started, to know the other leaders and to have a space where I could go to meet the other executive directors and be embraced and welcomed. You have to build that over time, but I think there's also another way to build a local economy is to just actually, you can step right in. There's like a pathway in right away to connection and resource.
Yeah. One thing that struck me during that was, oftentimes in nonprofits, people are so selfless that they won't even really accept those funds. But kind of, that's the thing that ends up pushing them out of it, is like they're so selfless and so good, but then they also don't have a way of sustaining themselves. So that's huge.
That's right. We see that all the time. Teachers are like that too. Mm-hmm. Teachers will give and give and give. And, we have to make sure that people who take care of us, that we take care of them.
100%. Yeah. So important.
Yeah.
With so much happening with all of this, managing all of that must be a huge challenge. So I'm interested to kind of hear your kind of back end of what tools you're using, what you were using before you jumped over to Jotform, and how you ended up getting to Jotform.
Yeah. So we use Jotform. Let's see, what were we using before? We were using too many tools. It was we were using, I would say a little bit of Google form, a little bit of maybe just a Word document that we would circulate and ask people to add feedback in. Every now and then we also had some platforms that we were using. We were using something called, we were using a grant management system. I can't remember the name of it. It'll come to me in a second. People were really upset about the form because the accessibility and the navigatability of the tool were just low. It was really unfamiliar. And then also the reporting on the back end was really challenging to access, right? Because it was you had to have the special code to get into the thing. So and it was also always a question of where is something? It's we asked these kinds of questions over here and we asked these kinds of questions over there. And then registration was through another platform we were using. What is that? Eventbrite. So we were doing event registrations there, and then you'd have to pull the information. And if there was additional questions, you'd have to do. So it was just a lot of places where we were, needing information externally or internally, because we also would do staff surveys and our LMS. And so it was we were asking questions or needed information shared back. We were doing that in all these different ways. And it made it challenging because it felt like it was difficult to master what to do with all the data that came back. Mm-hmm. Because every system has its own way of sharing out to you the information. And so there just wasn't that uniformity of, this is the feedback we're getting. And so this lets us know we're on the right track, or we need to make some improvements. Even that was really challenging to really nail down from a feedback place or even from a registration place. There were just too many tools, too much. Yeah.
How did you end up discovering Jotform? I'm just curious what's the origin of?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't remember how we got to Jotform, but it was one of the many tools that we were using. I know there was a Survey Monkey in there. Was Survey Monkey would do our post-event feedback where we were doing registration and something else. And I was can't you just do it all in this thing? Because we had a Jotform account that we were using for some of this. I was okay, all of these things can be done here. And I remember we were in a meeting, in a data management meeting, and it was oh yeah, Yeah, that's true. Like even for one event, we were seeing like, we were registering an Eventbrite and then getting feedback in SurveyMonkey. Mm-hmm. Just that is bananas. Like, you can just do all of that in Jotform.
Hence the Survey Monkey it's bananas.
Monkey, the bananas. Thank you for catching that. I was like, man, somebody should laugh. And so just like the streamlining, I think has been really helpful in that like this is the tool where you go to ask questions. If you have a question for someone or you need information and you want to compile it back, you go to Jotform and Jotform can help you. If you want to collect things from people, sometimes I talk about it like that. Like, oh, there's something you want to collect from a group, then the Jotform would be like your collection tool. So maybe it's feedback, maybe it's registration information, maybe it's, t-shirt sizes so that we can make the t-shirt order. But you can absolutely do it there. And that has, once people started using it and got trained, and we saw people who are like actively taking additional training so that they can go deeper, because that's the other thing is the tool has depth. You can definitely use it if you're like not a great tech person. You can kind of set up a form pretty quickly and easily. But if you want to talk, you want to get into like conditional language, you can build a workflow and an approval pathway that's maybe complicated. And so some of our team members are really kind of into that, but even with that, it's visual, highly visual, how to do it. So people are gaining fluency in the tool that maybe with if it was more coding based, they'd be like, I give up, so there's a way to kind of elevate your knowledge of it. And we always are finding like new uses for it. I know like from the board perspective, our board of directors, they have a lot of compliance forms to fill out. And so 3 years ago, we would like hand them a stack of digital papers, like stats, the digital, they get an email with like 10 PDFs and it was like, hey, can you sign all of these? Well, now they just get Jotform. Right? They get a link and they go through and they sign everything and fill it out and read the policy and sign. And then it's like all in one place. And so the other day, I actually had to ask for someone, hey, I need all of the confidentiality agreements for the board from FY25. Well, they're easily packaged from Jotform, right? They were on our drive where they belong, but they were already, like downloaded in 2 different formats, beautifully and perfectly packaged. So I had a choice of, well, how would you like the data? Would you like separate PDFs for each one? Would you like them zipped all into one place? Or would you like me to go back in and pull the spreadsheet and you can see the data in that way, right? And so even that is like, that's much better than like, oh, here's a stack of 10 PDFs you can look at, which is not what I want.
That you have to dig for in your email somewhere. And
oh my goodness. Yeah. So all of that digging. Yeah. A lot of forms. We do we do a lot of financial processes in Jotform. So we have a purchase request process that we built in Jotform using a lot of the conditional components. So, somebody needs to make a request for a purchase. They put it into the form. It goes based on who they are. It knows where to route it for approvals. And it goes to their manager. Before that, we were doing email your manager and ask for an approval.
Yeah.
And then the manager would say, I approve. And then you would send the email to the purchase person and say, look through the thread of emails. See, I have an approval. Can you order this? And then the person would say, you didn't put the quantity. You didn't put right. So now there's like a formalized way to ask, but also a formalized way to get all those approvals in advance. And then in terms of audit trail, done. Right? When our auditor needs to see if we're consistently in line with our internal controls, this is the consistent way that we said we would make purchases, that we would have, these prior approvals, ask in advance, whatever the procurement process is. Great. You want to see it all? You can look at it easily. It's easy to download and share. And so it just makes it an all around much easier process for everybody.
That's amazing. Routing it to the right people and actually being able to track all of that stuff. It's amazing how how people kind of forget how complicated that all used to be. And now it's kind of like it's all simplified in one interface.
Streamlined. Yeah, you just put it in and it zips and goes back to everybody's inbox, and then lets everybody know at the end, great, thank you for the success. This one was, we're able to close this one out. It was approved, or thank you, this one was rejected and it's closed out. So everybody gets an update, and it's just a much more streamlined way to do something that used to take, or through email, it takes, 4 or 5 emails deep if you do it properly each time.
Yeah, it's kind of our CEO's mantra is automate the busy work, get all that stuff to where it's simplify it. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
I'll send you his book.
Yeah, please. Yes. Yeah. I want it. That sounds great. Yeah, I like that. Automate the busy work. I'm going to steal that. Thank you.
Well, TM. Never mind. I guess you want to maybe just walk us through a process that you've automated. You've kind of gone through that, but I was thinking grant approvals or reimbursements, anything like that you'd be comfortable talking about.
Yeah, we can talk about reimbursements. Reimbursements are great because the reimbursement process is obviously can be a really fraught process because it does often result in rejection and more so than standard purchasing. And also that's because it's not just internal staff who can be, trained relentlessly on the procedure, but sometimes some of our external stakeholders may be also submitting reimbursements, right? So they don't work here every day. It's more likely they're going to submit something that needs to be sent back. And so one of the things that our incredible grants and contracts manager was really cognizant about, because she had been running this process through a spreadsheet that she would send, and then the person would fill it out and send it back with all the attachments. And then she would upload everything into our finance management system, was how much back and forth would take place, because there were a lot of resubmissions that were needed. So she was wise beyond her years. Her name is Maria. She's incredible. And she was like, we instead of rejection, we really do need a resubmit option, which allows a person to revise what they've put in, maybe make some re-uploads and some revisions. So instead of just someone getting a spreadsheet and because we wanted people to be able to calculate their mileage or the amounts, right? Because we do mileage to the same procedure. We now have a Jotform that opens up, and it has all of the accounting codes embedded in the drop-down menus. You're able to put in everything that we need to have audit level approvals for your mileage, for instance. And then it once a year we update it with the calculations, because the calculation for mileage changes by the federal government every fiscal year, right? So it's somebody goes in and changes that calculation. So you just put in the same information you normally do. This is the address of where I started, my ending address. This is my mileage. This is how much I should get back. If you're getting a reimbursement for actual objects, there's room to put in everything we need to know about the purchase. The accounting code is in a drop down. We also have several layers of accounting code. So it's sure, this is your account code, but then we have a project code and a department code and a couple, right? And those can get confusing. But now with before, when it was just about email, you're like, what's the project code again? And now they're all in the drop down. So you're not confused. It's also training you to remember the difference between an account code and a project code and a department code, right? Because you see it when you're doing it. You're uploading, you also can upload the PDFs of your receipt right there, right? Then we get the receipt and we go, oh, sorry, this isn't a permissible expense. And we, instead of rejecting it, we're able to kind of do a soft no, right? By saying, this isn't it, right? The person can reopen. They don't have to restart and resubmit everything. They can just make the amendments. We can leave a note to say, hey, that's actually not the right code. You put materials and supplies, but this is a Lyft ride. So that's not a material or supply. It's a shared ride. Use the code for the, so those kinds of things that people, especially that are outside of our organization seeking reimbursement, just need that kind of nuance. And it's not the same as rejected, right? And they don't start from scratch. So Maria was brilliant to think of that. And we were able to do that inside of the form. Then the form goes around, it goes to finance. It zips over to the programmatic team for whatever project that was. Maybe we took a field trip or made a site visit to a location. And so everybody was able to get a reimbursable lunch. That person can sign off on yes, that person was in attendance. Then it can zip over to finance to check all the account codes. And it can zip over to the executive leadership team to mark it as an allowable expense. So it zips all around the organization, which is really exciting. because you also can see the history of it as it's zipping around. It's like, oh, this got resubmitted twice, or oh, they fixed that, or so that you're also in the loop as it's coming to you. You're making a decision on your approval with full context. I love that, because that's the worst when you're especially a person who approves things as much as I have to, right? Or reviews things. You don't want to have to dig into someplace else. I want all the information I need about this request to be contained here in this request, so I can make an assessment here. I don't want to have to dig into other files. So everything is there. People can attach new things along the way even, which is really exciting. And then, once it's done, it's done. For us, the package and the download out is also really simple, because we can download it as one zip, right, all into one place. And our financial management system can pick it up and then produce a bill and move forward. So like having all of the documents that I always call documents like that, we want all of our documentation to be audit ready, meaning everything you need to know is contained within the record. You don't have to dig or look for something else. It's like, just the sample alone, I can see everything I need to see. And Jotform helps us to do that with that financial procedure.
Yeah, we need to add that to our workflow, is a try again button. Yeah,
a try again. Yeah. We title ours resubmit.
Yeah.
And it is basically like, try again, but you don't have to start again, because that's what people would get so frustrated if you reject it and you got to start a whole new. I got to fill out the form again from scratch. It's like, you don't have to fill it out from scratch. You can edit, right? It's basically the edit workflow.
Yeah.
You can edit your original submission.
Yeah, that's great. I feel like a lot of people could benefit from having that kind of resubmit, especially in the nonprofit world.
Yes. Yeah, it makes people feel a little better than a no. Hard no.
Is Baltimore Children and Youth Fund publicly funded? And how do you ensure accountability for all of that money?
Yeah, that's a great question. We are publicly funded. Over 99% of our budget comes from tax dollars, from real estate tax dollars. And so our main constituent is the public, is the average citizen who supports the Children and Youth Fund. And so for me, it's really important that our documentation, again, is at that audit ready place. Because we're also a quasi-government agency, which means that all of our records are public. So, even our grant applications, and people do ask for these, after the grant application close, whatever you submitted to us, if you submitted a request, anybody in the public can request to see it, your compliance record, anybody in the public can say, I'd like to see the compliance record for this grantee. And we have to share it. So it's really important to me that the systems that we use are able to produce a record of progress and a record that's reliable for what the process was and how well the process was implemented consistently. And so Jotform helps us to do that. So from anything from record requests to, we share our budget before the board votes on our budget. We share it with the public in a town hall style event, and get feedback and make edits to our budget. And so for people to know then that we're taking that budget document as a living document that we aim to have fidelity to, and it works its way through our reimbursement process, our purchase request process, right? That people can actually see documentation of every single dollar being reviewed before it's spent, I think is really important as a citizen to know how seriously we take the stewardship of those resources day after day. And we ran our grant cycle on Jotform for, I think, 3 years before, because we wanted some extra time to select a grants management system that would be fully comprehensive and, have a portfolio management side. But in the meantime, we ran our grant cycle on the entire thing on Jotform. And we always, even now, have a backup just in case something happens where if there was a crash with our application system, that we have an active Jotform backup, because we found that the review in Jotform because we have a community grant review process. So that means people have to be able to review the application. Easy. If the review of the applications was easy, the submission was easy, We were able to do all sorts of like fun things with the application, like creating like a Mad Lib style section of the application where people put in their mission, vision, and values, and it turns out a Mad Lib for like their I love Mad Libs, but like a Mad Lib for like, you know, what their organization is all about. Like we were able to do fun, cool stuff that when we went over to the GMS, we were like, hey, our people are used to this fun, cool stuff in the application. So we have to build this stuff out. But like, you know, we've used the tool a lot. And even now, when it's time to look back on the ways that we don't use it anymore for the application, but it's always on standby and it stays updated as well. When we have to pull information from it, it is easier to pull the information back out and produce it in Jotform like that than it is through our much more sophisticated, and by sophisticated, I mean like comprehensive portfolio management system. It's not as simple to do the reporting. Like, it's like, oh, okay, I got to pull this report. It would have been much easier in Jotform, but we wanted a place too to be able to do portfolio management as well. But the tool is definitely beloved by our team who engages with it. I mean, I don't know anybody who's not getting a Jotform in their inbox daily because we use it for so many things, from staff surveys to the grant application itself.
Yeah. Well, you need to put in a support ticket for Mad Libs on the on the grant portfolio side.
Yeah.
Come on, get on that.
Get it. Make it happen. Mad Lib. What's better than a Mad Lib? Nothing.
That's true. It's true. I guess jumping ahead here, beyond grants, how does Jotform help with communications, like logs and photos from guarantees or grantees? I mean, sorry.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, we have a couple things. Our site visit reporting happens in Jotform still.
Okay.
And we do it there because then it's easy to share it back out with the grantee. So we take a few photos. We also capture all of the photo release forms in Jotform. So that's an easy way for like us to, before we show up at a program, we'll send a link to the program director. They can then we'll send them the link and the QR code. And like as parents are dropping off kids that week, they can be like, hey, BCYF is coming on Thursday. They're bringing their professional photographer. We need photo releases for all the kids. So they can get those, using the QR code or send the link to parents in their newsletters. We found that that's a really, really simple way. But just last Friday, we had a workshop. We had an all-team meeting in person, like a retreat style, and we were talking about our project management system. And we were getting some feedback and jotting some notes down. And so I sent out a survey in Jotform at the end of that discussion. And, by the time people got home, because we left the office before people even got home, they had a report of the feedback from their colleagues. And what was interesting was the feedback in the room was very helpful, but the feedback in the surveys really pointed us to there. In the room, it felt like there was a lot of uncertainty about the use of the tool, but in the surveys, people were like, yeah, I realize I'm uncertain, but I see the value of this project management system that we're using. And these are some ways I can fill in the gaps. Where in the room, it felt more like, I'm not sure if this is the tool for us. The surveys helped us to clarify, like, no, we made a good business decision with this tool. We're going to keep using it. And so to be able to provide to staff so quickly feedback on their feedback, and then to use that to be able with my executive leadership team this Friday to share that feedback back so I already have a set of recommendations from the staff surveys. We can choose which ones are most viable that we can move forward with right away. So that was like just Friday, to be able to like use a tool, throw the QR code up, everybody do it on their phone. Let's get this feedback back in place. So yeah, those are some of the ways we use it kind of programmatically. I know even we have a HR information system, but people are really familiar with Jotform. So even for our evaluation process, the submission that then the HR team comes and pulls that information and ports it into the HR information system, we use Jotform for that because it's just, we were like, upload your evaluation form into your personnel file. And people were like, I don't know how to how do you link it? And what do you do? It's like, Okay. So instead, everybody knows how to submit in Jotform. And so she pulled all the documents there, and then her and her team are able on the back end to put them in the files where they go. And the process is 5 times as fast instead of training each person individually how to link to their personnel file, because it's an unusual thing that they're not used to doing. So we found that too, sometimes it's easier to capture the information using the tool that we all are super aware of. And it's easy to share the tool because, again, there's you can share a QR code, you can share a link, you can share this, you can do that. And so we're able to kind of think about ways to utilize it very quickly.
Yeah, that's so cool to hear is, in your situation, being able to do more with less seems like the most important thing. And right,
can you imagine one tool to rule them all? That's right. Because this is one subscription we're paying instead of at least 6 others. We were able to cancel and close out other accounts and focus our financial dollars on, let's pay for this one subscription and free up our dollars to do other things.
Yeah. I'm actually curious, when did you switch over to Enterprise? Was that a relatively recent thing or?
I think we've been on the Enterprise for about 1.5 years now. I think we started where it was again, there was a slow burn. The grant application really was the first big thing that we started putting there. And so once the grant application was there, it didn't make so much sense. Why is the events team and the external affairs folks, why are we in Eventbrite? Mm-hmm. Right. And so then it was we need to go. I was wait, grant management system. Why are you sending out a Google form for the grantee surveys? So then we had to get an Enterprise account because we needed more people to be able to utilize the tool. And we use the spaces in the Enterprise account so people have access to different spaces. Just recently, we made a new space just for all of our event registrations and feedback forms for every event to go in the one place, which we used to do things differently. It was each team would have them, but we were able to build some templates that I think would be really helpful. And then we can compare all that data in one set, because we want to know overall what's the feedback for every event. So to be able to kind of put it in one space has been really helpful as well. But that Enterprise account, it became overnight. Yeah, we're going to need an Enterprise account. Once we started seeing how many, I guess that's duplicative programs we had that could really be solved in one place, then we never looked back.
Well, yeah. So cool to hear all of the journey that you've gone on to get to where you are, and how Jotform has kind of been a big part of that and kind of grown with you, which is always fun to hear, the nonprofit side of things, because, we hear the corporate side of things, but the nonprofit is always so we decided we wanted to use it for this, and then we decided we wanted to use it for that, and then it just grew and it grew and it grew.
Keeps growing. Yeah, that's right. It's the gift that keeps on giving. Jotform. I love it.
Right on. Awesome. I'm putting that on a poster. I had a question. Can you share how you customized the Youth Advisory Board application? I saw that in the case study.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Super interesting.
That's a good one. So we had done some research with some of our colleagues in other states. We have a requirement. We're required to have 1/3 of our board be young people, so 14 to 24. And we have a standard application. And one of the pieces of feedback that we got from our great friends at the New Orleans Youth Alliance was that the application should be a little different for young people. And so we wanted to add some of those equity components. So one of the things we wanted to add was the questions that were there. We wanted people to be able to choose how they submitted their responses. And so we decided we wanted people to be able to write their responses. We wanted people to be able to give an audio and answer and record their responses there. We wanted people to be able to submit a video and say, there's a video of me saying these responses. And we wanted people to be able, if needed, to say, I'd really rather deliver these responses to a person. Can I set up a phone call, make an appointment? Mm-hmm. And we were able to do all of those options. When we came up with the ideas, we were like, these are great. Now, how are we going to do this again? How are we going to capture all of this? But we were able to capture those in one place and make it also make sense. So it was the questions are here. You choose what method of delivery you want to do. And then using conditional statements, we were able then to, basically divert folks to different pages so that they could do that. So the first page was like your demographic information. We got to get your name and all of that written down. And then after that, you tell us how you want to engage with the submission. And if you were going to do an audio, it would take you to the audio page and you would press record. And, we put in how much, we had limitations for each kind of capture in terms of time. Including if you wanted an appointment, you could make an appointment right there in Jotform. And then someone would contact you, you get a calendar invitation and somebody would contact you and you would do your interview that way. And so we had a lot of people apply, a lot of young people apply. It was our first time kind of doing a call out to the public for young people. And we had a lot of young people apply, which was really exciting. And young people took advantage of all of the different options, which was great, right? Because we were like, sometimes you're like, oh, we're doing all this extra stuff. Is this really valuable and helpful? Then the other piece was because we still needed, the review process was still an asynchronous process. So the text still was going to be king for the reviewers. Like they can't, so we were able to easily take the text, download it, and summarize the answers using some AI tools and then submit it back in. So it was like a real generative process utilizing technology. And, because of the formats that you're able to export out of Jotform, it was very simple to get those things summarized quickly in AI and then submit it back out. And people really felt like the reviewers who had, 50 applications to review felt like they were getting then the core essence of who each person was. And for each person who was able to submit, they were also able to submit as themselves. There was no strength in writing versus talking versus video versus I need a person to talk to. And so I was really, really, really proud of the team. Emily Corey led that work. She's our board administrator. Really, really proud of the team for thinking about how can we implement equity solutions, right? Equity considerations into a process in a way that also then doesn't make it so that it's confusing. Because even just talking about it, it's like, how many options are there? It could be confusing, but the form allowed it to be very streamlined. We didn't have any young people reaching out to say they didn't understand what to do, right? So it's great. In terms of utilizing the form, people had questions more of is it equal to do any of these? Are you going to look down on me if I do the video route? But no one had a question how do I make the video? Right. Yeah. So you can't beat that when there's the technical assistance questions really are programmatic instead of how do I use the technology? And so, that was a great way for us to introduce, some young people as well to the tool and to see how again, we can just meet people where they are using technology.
That's really just great outside the box thinking. I'm curious, what was the percentage of who chose which way?
I'd have to look. I don't know off the top of my head, but I do know that all of the solutions were utilized, which I was, I thought for sure kids would just go the video route, but kids did go all 4 routes, which I thought was really cool. And that let me know too, it's worth it to kind of make that extra investment on the front end to think a little creatively so that everyone can participate, because every kid that chose a route that wasn't going to be available could mean a young person that was oh, this opportunity isn't for me. And instead they were oh, this is for me. This is exactly the way I want to communicate about who I am and why I want to be on this board. And I think it left open. We had about 50 young people apply, but it did send a strong message that we were serious about changing the ways that we do things, even programmatically, to make room for young people. And I don't think that what we did shouldn't be used for the adults. Mm-hmm. We just never thought of it because it's oh, adults, you can just do exactly the status quo stuff. But it's oh, yeah, maybe there are some adults that would like to be on the board that don't feel as confident to write about why they're passionate about Baltimore and would feel more comfortable or feel stronger about the way that they are able to communicate in a video or audio or, but we're just doing the written thing. So I'm sure when we open the application this year, I'm sure just knowing Emily and how, rooted in equity she is, that she's going to suggest that we also expand the adult application to have those other portals of access.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Yeah.
It is a good idea, I think, too. And we would have had to choose like 4 different tools, right? It would have been like a Word document that was like, if you want to do audio, go here. If you want it, right? And that
figure out how to record it at home, send it to us, record on your phone. And yeah.
No, the recording button is one of the widgets in Jotform. And so you just record it right there. Move on. It's
That's
great.
so cool. Yeah, I thought that was super interesting. So I definitely wanted to highlight that.
Yeah, thank you. I had forgotten about that. Yeah, that was recent. We just did that. Yeah, we did that this spring.
Yeah, so cool. I guess just kind of jumping over to your mission impact, how does technology translate into better outcomes for young people and giving back to the community and these programs that you're running?
Sure. Well, also because BCYF is new. So when I got to BCYF, in 2022, I did an assessment of our infrastructure, right? We were a brand new organization. I was the first employee. And we had 4% of the infrastructure that we needed in order to say we have infrastructure, right? So we didn't have a lot of stuff. and things took a lot of time, from all of the processes we've talked about, a purchase request, filling out an evaluation, asking questions, garnering feedback from people. Everything took a lot of time because we had a lot of systems to build. And while that's okay in the beginning, over time, we got to see more efficiency. Because every minute that I'm spending, reviewing a reimbursement form is also a minute that I'm not doing strategic work around thinking about young people and the programs that support them. And while both of those things need to be done, because this is a nonprofit, we have a double bottom line of doing good, but also being an efficient business. While both of those things are important, I think for the public, they would like for us to spend most of our time thinking about impact work. And so to be able to have so many ways that Jotform takes some of the thinking out of a process, so that even when I come to do the process, I don't have to think about like, where does this go next and where did it come from? I'm really then also can be a better steward because I'm focusing in on the information in front of me. It's all in one place and I'm able to make a better decision. The amount of time that that's saving us as an organization is seen in the speed with which we're able to move these days versus in the beginning, the speed that we're able to get a disbursement out on time to a grantee who's waiting for their grant disbursement. It's been a year and a half. There hasn't been any grantee that's gotten a disbursement past those 30-day period once they've been cleared. That's also because of the proficiency of these processes and the ways that we're able to wrap reviewing into our Jotforms so that we can really focus in when we're doing the work. So I do often think about like technology being a conduit to just more efficiency. We put all the work in and the thought into the process. I don't want to then have to think through the process every time I do it. I've already done the thinking and I have a plan that, annually we'll look at the processes and make sure they still fit. So the thinking is going to happen. But if you want me to think about it to that detail every time I engage with it, you're wasting a lot of taxpayer dollars. For us, it's like, there's other things that we could be focused on. So it just frees us up to really focus on the work. I always tell our team, it's like, this is the work that matters. It frees us up to work on the work that really matters. Yeah. And the work that matters is having a high degree of integrity in the way that you shepherd resources and being able to be innovative and responsive to the community that we serve. So that's what matters the most. And that's what we want to make sure that our time is free to do.
Yeah. That's such an important message, I feel like, for anybody who's considering similar solutions. It's like it frees you up to focus on the things that matter the most, taking care of the kids and actually working with the community. I think that's a super important message. I guess kind of looking back, what's the biggest transformation you've seen since adopting Jotform to your workflows?
Sure. I think one of the biggest transformations, it has given some people who I think were a little technology, we work remotely, so you can't be a technology like averse, but some people are averse to new platforms. right? They're like, I'm a technology person. Otherwise, you wouldn't want to work remotely. But that doesn't mean I want to learn a new thing. It's like, I really like, I know how to use SurveyMonkey. I'm good there. So I have seen a big shift, and there were a lot of tools that we let go of. And there was some change management that our IT team went through to help people to traverse over to a new platform. And I've seen a lot of people get over there and say, oh, I see how this is better for my needs, but also I'm imagining some other ways I can use the tool. Which wasn't possible if the tool is so refined it's just for events, right? You can't then think about like, how can I use this with my team on our retreat or so I have seen that. And I think that confidence with technology has built some of those same people's confidence to use other types of technology that are adjacent or connected. We have a project management system and it's pretty robust as well. And so I have seen some people say like, oh, I'm not used to such a robust system. And Jotform is more user-friendly initially. Then they will take some extra Jotform trainings. And then they'll be like, oh, this kind of like conditional thinking happens over there too, right? And so it's helping people to access some of those, I guess it's like data literacy tools that help you to navigate data and technology tools. But Jotform is a great gateway to being able to do that. And if we're going to work remotely, and a lot of folks are transitioning to remote work, you've got to have facility with these technology tools. In the beginning, sure, it might be like, oh, this is slowing me down. And you've got to catch up where you're like, this is speeding me up, right? And that's a learning curve. And so a tool like Jotform has a learning curve embedded where some tools don't. And I have seen a lot of people like show up at meetings and they're using words like, oh, well, I think the workflow and I'm like, okay, great. The conditional statements of the such and so. I'm like, okay. From people that don't normally or previously didn't have like access to that knowledge and confidence about it. And it could be the visualization that's so heavy in Jotform tools. They're highly visual. So, but you're learning how to you're learning how to code. You're learning how to use like really big system kind of mechanics, but you're learning it in a way, I guess that feels a little more personable, user-friendly. So the user experience really can promote your folks to build some, like now Jotform's going to charge us for those as trainings, but don't charge us extra. But it is helping people to learn some data tools and some computer information technology tools that they just don't have if they work, especially on a programmatic side. And I see people using the language, it's like people that in the beginning, maybe a year or two ago, I remember having conversations. We were starting to draft some standard operating procedures. And people were just like, that's not, everybody, when you come into an organization that's new, it's like a startup. You're the one that's going to draft the standard operating procedures. There's not a procedure. Those same people now talking about workflows with confidence that are like, well, actually, we need to adjust the workflow. It's like, okay, great. That's awesome. And that's because of the use of those tools.
Yeah, that's cool. It's like a gateway to bigger systems and more complex things. I kind of wonder if some of the youth that you're bringing in, this is their first kind of touch point with some of this technology. And I wonder if it will actually lead to a career in tech later on. Yeah,
you never know. Because, even, our young people, again, like if you're a young person board member, we just had their first orientation on Saturday. On Saturday, we used Jotform for the evaluation form at the end of the meeting. We used it for all of the compliance forms. I think there's like 8 compliance forms you have to fill out every year. So they filled out all of those forms using Jotform, in the meeting. So just on Saturday, they touched Jotform twice in a 4-hour period, just at one event, So I think that is interesting to think about, like, as they get to know our work more intricately, asking more questions about the work that happens on the inside.
Yeah, and coming up with more ways of using Jotform to make their lives easier and streamline those processes.
Yeah, the low code solutions, at least for us, are really helpful. That's what we call Jotform. It's like a low code solution, meaning you don't have to, there's not such a big hurdle there, and you can really design things the way you want them. But I mean, it's cost effective, but for us, it's also been, flexible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm excited. There's ways right now, and this is so nerdy to be excited about, but there's like things we're doing right now that in a year, I'll be like, oh yeah, we did that on Jotform now. And I just haven't thought of them, or the team member hasn't brought it up to be like, hey, wait, couldn't we just put this in Jotform and then we don't have, it's like, oh yeah. And so that's kind of exciting to think like there's a tool that can over time grow with your organization and make things more efficient and maintain the level of scrutiny that we have as a public entity, right? That I feel very confident about, like, yes, this still will maintain the process at a high quality level. And I can, it's like fix a dent and forget it. Like, It's like, great, we can move on and the process will be guided and the team can then, again, be held to the integrity of the process. But yeah, that's exciting to me to think about, like, yeah, what else can y'all do? What else can this tool do? When you guys roll out new stuff, I saw some new AI components. I was like, sign me up for the training. Let us know, because then we can think for us. I forwarded 2 newsletters from Jotform to staff members last week. I was like, hey, isn't this something you might be able to use? I think there's like a new chat tool.
Yeah.
Integration. I was like, hey, what about this? And they were like, oh, okay. And so they're coming to the stuff. So yeah, we're very interested in, as you guys grow, how we can adopt some of the new tools, and also how some of the existing tools, we can think differently about how to use them.
Yeah, that's so amazing to hear, when we put out these new products, we're always kind of like, well, I wonder how people are going to use this. And like, it's exciting to hear, people like yourself giving back to the community, using these new tools as they come out.
Yay.
Yeah. I can't thank you enough, Alysia, for coming on to the show. I guess we'll kind of end it on what's your vision for Baltimore Children and Youth Fund in the next few years, and how do you see technology helping you get there?
Oh, thank you so much for that opportunity to share. So on the next horizon for us over the next 2 years, we are embarking on creating Baltimore's, this is a historic moment for us, Baltimore's first strategic plan for young people, a roadmap for supporting and investing in the youth development ecosystem written by young people. And so for us, that means from January to August, even of 2026, we're going to be traveling all across the city, meeting with our goal is at least 2,500 young people, collecting their feedback around their priorities and hopes and dreams for the city, so we can turn those into tangible goals and strategies that we all across the city can use to shape the way that we divert resources and build up youth voice and potential. We're going to be using Jotform. So how are we going to collect all of that information? Where are we going to put all those hopes and dreams? We're going to put them in Jotform. I want to be able to, of course, meet young people where they are, but also meet them at their most creative. So I don't want to just send out surveys that just have, select, check all that apply. While that's helpful and we'll use that, we also want to be able to collect arts artifacts and creative responses and to solutions and questions. And so we're like, great, Jotform can do all of that. And so our final report in the end will be a compendium of young people's voices and data from and charts and graphs, but it'll also be songs and drawings and quotes. And we feel confident that Jotform will help us to gather all of that information and turn back over to our city a year and a half, 2 years from now, a report that says this is what young people want out of life here in Baltimore, and we want to make sure they get it. So we're really excited to have so many young people that'll be able to engage with us using technology, and that we'll also be able to then track and monitor all of the materials that come in all their different formats through this technology. Jotform, we can send it out. You can fill that out on your phone. You can use your iPad. You can pull up a computer link. You can do this. You can do that. So being able to make sure that it's accessible, that it's also user-friendly, the visualization of it is very clear-cut and easy to use. And then for us and the data team that's responsible for taking all of that information with fidelity from young people across the whole city, we feel really confident with Jotform as our platform. So that is our data collection tool. And 2 years from now, we'll have the Baltimore Youth Master Plan completed. And we'll be using Jotform all along the way as the infrastructure underneath it all.
Wow, that is so exciting. You will have to share that with us.
Awesome. We'll do.
That would be so cool to see.
The final plan is a graphic novel. So we'll even share our quarterly reports with you. Yes. We'll be doing these graphic novel quarterly reports. Because we want it to be a plan, even white papers and things like that. I like to read them. You might like to read them too. You seem like a systems guy. The average adult is not diving in to these white papers. Okay, over wine. But we're hopeful that our graphic novel, right, will be something that people really are excited about. And to know that then we were able to capture so many hopes and dreams from young people, I think will really guide people to be really excited to crack that book open. So we'll share it all with you. And the ways that we're using these tools.
That's so cool. Making it digestible for everybody.
For everybody.
Not just the nerds.
Not just the nerds. That's right. I love a white paper. Send them to me. I love it. And
we got plenty.
The white paper and some Chianti is a good Saturday night to me. I'm in.
Right on. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. I can't wait to hear more about your story as you continue to evolve. And make sure you stay in touch, and we'll keep checking in on you.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having us, Patrick. Thank you.